Welcome to the AskBYS Podcast, a monthly podcast brought to you by Bainbridge Youth Services and its supporting sponsors. AskBYS Podcast connects parents to professionals that can provide support, education, and resources on a particular topic in parenting. The speaker's words and opinions are their own and do not represent the policies or opinions of BYS. I am your host, Jessica Crook, and am here with Milagro Castilleja as our producer. We are recording live at the Media Arts Studio at BARN, the Bainbridge Artisan Resource Network. Today's parent guest is Chanel Thomas. Hello, Chanel.
Hi, thank you, Jessica, for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And I will just say really quickly, my family, my daughter and I absolutely love BYS. We are clients. I've been in parent support groups. You are a wonderful organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We love being here for the community. Our professional guest is college consultant Tara Powers-Hausman.
Greetings. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I am a college consultant on the island and also the college counselor at Hyla Upper School. I've been doing this about 6 years now, have a certificate, which is 1 year of college in college consulting, and I'm a member of several professional organizations. And we too, my family has used BYS too, and so thankful for this resource.
Thank you. Thank y'all for being here. Today's episode is a conversation around college planning and preparation for students with learning differences and neurodiversity. And with that, I will hand this over to you, Chanel.
Thank you, Jessica. So my first question for you, Tara. So college planning sites and information, including, Professor Google, typically speak to traditional middle and high school students. And so we could have an entirely, and I hope we do sometime, different conversation about students who aren't fitting into the categories that Jessica mentioned. Students of color, LGBTQIA plus students, any group that is experiencing being othered, right? And doesn't fit that, I hate to say mainstream. There's probably a better term. But for kids with disabilities and chronic health issues, neurodivergence, let's say neurodiversity. It's a better word, right?
There you go.
Et cetera. How would you recommend that these diverse learners and their parents approach college planning?
Yeah, thank you. So this is going to be a long answer because the approach is really important. Number one on my list is be sure that the student knows their diagnosis, really understands it, can repeat it, can say it to another person, and really knows what their strengths are and what their limitations are. That's going to take them really far. It helps to have recent testing with some colleges. So if that needs to be done sometimes we just know our student has XYZ, but it's important to get it official. And also, to have a professional go over all of this information with them so they more deeply understand. And they can say, okay, so that's typical of somebody with ADHD, but I don't actually have that. Just that deep understanding of themselves. And that sort of leads into mastering self-advocacy. It's the number one thing that any student with learning differences, neurodiversity, any disability, or really any student anywhere is going to help them get through college. Way more than high school because you're on your own in college. You're 18, you're an adult, and your parent can't go there with you. So getting that down, great way to do that is talking to teachers. I know both of my kids who, one had an IEP, one had a 504, would go in before school started every year and would try to meet with every teacher to say, hey, have you read my 504 plan? These are the accommodations I use from that plan, and this is what helps me. So being able to talk about it and stick up for yourself and to say, for example, oh, hey, Mr. or, teacher, my accommodations say that I can test in a quiet space, and it looks like my test wasn't delivered. Please have it delivered. So, to be able to speak up for themselves. And then understanding how accommodations in K through 12 are very different than in college. They are under different umbrellas. K through 12 is under IDEA, IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. I always have a hard time saying that. Is K through 12. The goal of that is to involve parents and to get the student through. Curriculum can be modified. Standards can be lowered to get you through. Very different from college, which is under ADA, which says that we will not alter the curriculum or change our standards. We will give you tools to help you be more successful, but that's quite different. So it's important to know that. And, if your student is using the kind of accommodations that modify the curriculum in K through 12, might want to back off senior year to practice that. Yes, college parents just do not get involved. I can't repeat that enough. That's a hard one to take. Let's see, what else? Mastering self-care, that can be a big issue too. Laundry. I know my own son lost 10 pounds in his first 2 weeks of school because he couldn't quite figure out when to eat. Little things like that you can't anticipate. But that also speaks to mastering planning and organization, working on that before you go off to school, because you're used to being told what to do every minute of every day in high school, and then all of a sudden you've got one day with a class at 7 p.m. and another day with a class at 8 p.m., and you have all this time, and what do you do with it? So yeah, figuring that out can really help. If there are meds involved, getting that all sorted out. That can look differently for different students, but make sure they have a plan to take them every day. And what happens when you run out? What's the deal? Is there a pharmacy in the town that's the same as the one in your town at home? Are you in a different state? That sort of thing. Next step would be determining the level of services that your student needs in college. It's again not the same, and there are 4 sort of levels of service. One is basic, which is what every college is required to have through ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that is to have an office of accessibility, and that is for anybody with any disability, a learning disability, anxiety, a physical disability. You register with that office, and they are required to provide accommodations within reason, right? So, for example, if your student was really wanting a single because they have a lot of anxiety, it would likely have to be pretty extreme. Most schools don't have enough singles to do that, so that's where the within reason comes. But they can also provide things like sometimes software to record classes and turn it into text automatically. So kind of cool things like that. So that's basic services. The student is the one that has to register for those services, often every semester, every quarter, depending on the school. So this is where that self-advocacy comes into play. The next level is coordinated services, which is basic services with a little more robust support built in. They sometimes offer sessions on how to stay organized, executive function kind of help, are a little more equipped to link you with services, other services, mental health services, tutoring, that sort of thing. So that's the next level. An example of a school that has coordinated services or schools would be Cal Poly Pomona, Oregon State University, Tulane, George Washington University. So wide variety of schools that have coordinated services. And then there are schools that have structured programs. So there are separate programs within the school. Sometimes they're free, sometimes they're for a fee. And they usually offer regularly scheduled meetings and check-ins, executive function support, social support, other types of advocacy. They're more looking out for the student. And the goal is usually maybe do that for a semester or a year and get to the point where you're confident and strong enough to be on your own. Examples of those schools, I guess closest to here would be University of Arizona, their SALT program, University of Denver, Dean College, Curry, those are both in Massachusetts, McDaniel in Maryland, and Lynn in Florida. They have pretty good structured programs. And then the most robust would be a residential program. Sometimes they're within a school, but often they are in a town, in the town where the school is. And it's a residential situation, obviously. And they provide true wraparound services, such as life skills, planning, social support, more. These are, students who just aren't going to quite make it on their own. And usually, like I said, they're in a college town, and typically they are associated with both the college and with a local community college. Sometimes a student will start out with 1 or 2 classes in a community college and then work toward moving over to the 4-year school. Those tend to be pretty expensive, but worth knowing about for sure. Mansfield Hall is an example of one that is right by OSU. So let's see. Connecting with these offices when you're thinking about colleges is really important. So if your student really likes a certain school, as part of your exploration, definitely contact the Office of Accessibility. They're called different things at different schools. See what they have. See if they, are a good fit for your child, and learn about that.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know that was a very long answer.
That was beautiful. Thank you. I look forward to listening to this and writing all the notes that I'm not writing right now. But one thing that came up really quickly, and it veers slightly, is I'm hearing that parents, we need to take it upon ourselves in middle school and high school to help our students learn to advocate for themselves, learn to have some life skills, get them some help with executive functioning if needed, and that we're not expecting that the system does that for us, that we are part of that with organizations like BYS and others that we can utilize. And I guess my only question on that is, or at least it's a wondering, is do you ever see that the kids who are in these groups, it's challenging for them not to have shame, or their parents, shame built in around this? Do you see that that's lessening, or can you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. I'm seeing that it's lessening. I'm seeing high school students in particular more freely talk about whatever makes them different, which I love. Yeah, parents can be challenging with that too, with the shame. But interestingly enough, when they get to college, everybody has a thing, right? And they're just so much more accepting of each other in college. And a lot of schools have a real community around the Office of Accessibility. You'll see kids hanging out there doing their homework. They have friends. And it's just another thing that's part of what they do in college. The stigma seems to be very much gone. It's fascinating to see that, but it does happen. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. That's hopeful.
Yeah.
That's very hopeful.
Yes, it is. I do have hope.
So shifting gears slightly, if a student does not have an IEP or a 504 plan, are there any extra supports available during college testing, application, and admission processes?
Yeah, unfortunately, that answer is no. You really need that testing. You need to have a 504 or an IEP to get any accommodations on an ACT or an SAT or even an AP exam. You need those. And then, as far as support through the application process, The school counselor certainly can help with that. You can hire a private counselor, and there are a lot of resources on the internet too that can be really helpful.
Okay, great. And just breaking it down for anybody who doesn't know IEP versus 504.
Not an expert in that, but I will explain the 504 is more limited accommodations and an IEP has more robust accommodations. They're just different levels within K through 12. That language goes away in college, but yeah.
Can they carry it with them to some extent?
So that's a complicated answer. Okay. Sometimes yes. More and more I am seeing that if a student has a 504 or IEP in high school, they will be allowed to use that documentation to get accommodations in college. Some schools still insist on having a recent, usually within 3 or 4 years, neuropsych examination or psychoeducational exam, which unfortunately is expensive. Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. So now I'm on scholarships specifically, and could you outline suggestions for these students that may not participate in many extracurriculars?
Yeah. First of all, I'm going to back up. There is a school for everybody. There are schools for students that do a million things and have cured cancer and all the things, perfect SAT scores. And then there are schools for everybody else. Regarding extracurriculars, in general, colleges would rather see you do 2 things in a more committed way than 100 things. So I always say keep that in mind. And an extracurricular can be reading. It can be going to the gym in a committed way, volunteering, babysitting for your siblings, taking care of an elderly relative. It's usually when I first meet with students, they tell me, I don't do anything. And then, after a few weeks, all these things come out, and they do more than they think they do. So, yeah, there's that. As far as scholarships go, your best bet with scholarships are always going to be the college. They're going to give you the most money, the college that you attend. And that is typically, unfortunately, based usually on your GPA in high school. So after that, local scholarships, so scholarships in your town or your county or your state. And high schools usually have a list of those scholarships. And then after that, there are many scholarship websites that can match you. Going Mary is one of them that can match you for different scholarships for different reasons. And they have all the reasons. You can definitely say, I have ADHD or I have dyscalculia or whatever, and they will come up with some. Because they are, national, there are going to be a lot of applicants, but certainly worth trying for. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Would you say there are colleges or universities in this state, Washington, that are offering free support, including those without an IEP and 504 plan?
Yeah, so both within Washington State and everywhere else, there are great resources on almost every college campus. Getting the students to use them is the trick, right? So almost every campus has a writing center, and you can use it if you have no idea what you want to write about. You don't even understand the prompt. You can go at that end. You can go in the middle and have somebody help you with, hey, I've got this started. Do you think I'm moving in the right direction? Or you can come in at the end and ask them to proofread it or edit it. So those are amazing resources. Every college is going to treat how you go there differently. Some of them will have you make an appointment, but many of them just have office hours where you can walk in and get help. So that is a fantastic resource. Many schools have math centers or specific math support sessions, especially for lower level math classes that seem to really be tricky for students. And then most schools will have either peer tutoring or professional tutoring available. Peer tutoring is usually free. If there is professional tutoring, sometimes there's a fee, so that's different. But the other thing I tell all my students, no matter what, go to office hours. Get to know your professors. Get to know your TAs. They're the ones that are going to be fantastic support for you as well. So, yeah, all of those things are available to everybody.
Great, good to know. Yeah. Thank you. All right, this is about testing, as in SAT, ACT, et cetera. And since the pandemic lockdowns, I'm seeing confusing statements from colleges and universities around this. And if a diverse learner tends to score lower on those tests than their counterparts, is it just better for them not to do it? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm going to back up a little bit on this one and explain the landscape right now. The weight of standardized tests had been dropping even before the pandemic, where colleges were saying, yeah, we'll use this, but it's not the big thing that it once was. So that kind of gives you some context. Since the pandemic, when everybody went test optional, there are a few schools that are coming back and saying they want tests. They tend to be in the Southeast and many of the Ivies at that level. But otherwise, most schools are test optional. And that can mean a couple of different things. It can mean we are solidly test optional, and if you don't want to supply a test, that's fine. We're going to consider you the same way. And then there are schools that say only submit scores if they are within the middle 50% or higher. So it's a little bit of a game right now. Don't personally like it very much because it's a game. Then there are schools that will not even look at scores now. All of the Washington State schools, all the California schools. You can send scores all day long, and they're not going to look at them. There are a couple exceptions with specific programs, but yeah. So if you know you want to go to college at a state school in Washington or California, don't bother, right? My rule of thumb has always been, if you are applying to a test optional school and you don't feel like the results of your test reflect who you are as a student, don't do them. Don't waste the time. I'm not a fan of make work. If it's going to be a no, and you're not going to go to a school that cares deeply about it, then skip it. Yeah, I know the needle's still moving all over the place, but I feel like there are good opportunities, plenty of good opportunities for people that do not test well.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you. That's encouraging in my case with my family. So colleges and universities visit, and I have a typo here, but they visit BHS every year.
And HYLA.
And HYLA, that's right, and HYLA, to meet with prospective students. And how would you recommend, you spoke a bit to this earlier, I just want to really dive in here, that these diverse learners approach such meet and greets, and I have a little further. If a student finds the idea overwhelming, are there alternative ways to meet college reps and ask questions?
Yeah, so what these are is in the fall, our area reps, so the representatives of a college who handle all the students in either Washington State or certain counties or a bunch of different states, will come and visit high schools. Sometimes they're virtual, a lot of times we're back to doing in person, and they will usually be about 20-minute sessions. Students can sign up for them, and it's mostly a presentation by the admissions rep on what their school is like. And then there's room for Q&A at the end where students can or don't have to ask questions. I would encourage anybody, if they're at all interested in a school, to try to attend if they can. It shows the school that you're interested, and they take note of that, because if you're interested in a school and you've taken the time to interact in some way, according to them, you're more likely to say yes if they offer you admission. So It can be a good way to learn things that you didn't know. But if it is too much, it is fine not to go, but I do suggest interacting in some way. So get the email address of that person who came and did the visit. Send them a message. Hey, I wasn't able to make the meeting today, but I wanted you to know that I'm interested and I have this question. Another thing, going back to attending those that can help is to go in with some questions on your phone or on a notepad or whatever, so that you're prepared that if you feel like asking them, you have some there that you can ask. But again, if it's too much, there are other ways to interact as well. For students who have anxiety or get overwhelmed easily, I suggest avoiding the giant college fairs that come to Seattle. There are 2 that come every year. I find them overwhelming, and I go and I volunteer. So, it's a lot, and you don't have to do that. Again, there are other ways to interact with the school.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I just want to thank you, Tara, for offering all your insights and your expertise on these topics. And what other input and ideas can you share with us that would give diverse learners and their parents direction in college planning?
Yeah, so one of my most favorite things to tell families who have students who just high school wasn't set up for them, and they struggle and just sort of sometimes get the life squeezed out of them in this process. From where I stand, the students that have developed the skills to move through high school with their learning difference or neurodiversity or whatever disability they have tend to do better at college when they go in with those skills. That self-advocacy is huge, right? Knowing yourself is huge. Having the confidence and, spending the time to find the right place for you as well is big. I love seeing how well my students with learning differences do when they've had that background and they've had, the advantage of getting ready, versus their peers that may have had it easy for 4 years and haven't had any challenges or obstacles. So, that's really nice to see. What else? Visiting colleges can be super helpful to anyone who's a little hesitant. You don't really know how it all works or what it looks like until you've seen a campus. And you don't have to visit a college that you think that you're going to go to. Maybe in 10th grade when you're in Seattle, you go do a tour and an info session at Seattle U, which is a medium-sized school, or UW, which is a large state school. We also have small liberal arts schools within an easy drive. University of Puget Sound, for example. I would think from Barn it would be an hour and 10 minutes exactly to get there. Always suggest signing up for the tour and the info session. It's fun to see other students interact with their tour guides and to get the full scoop on what's going on campus from the admissions people.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Laura.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
Yes. This episode is going to be very well received by the community and so helpful for all the parents and caregivers and students as well. So thank you both, Chanel. Thank you, Tara. And for allowing BYS to be part of your conversation. Thank you to Barn for providing the studio space. We leave you with the foundation that healthy youth begins with healthy families, and healthy families build healthy communities.